Hello, and thank you to everyone for joining today's webinar, Unravel Problem Management. My name is Renee Alanis. I'm the Senior Marketing Manager here at TechExcel. Today's webinar, if you're unaware, is part 3 in a 4-part series on ITIL and ITSM best practices. So be sure to check out the techexcel.com events page to see the recordings of part 1 and part 2. And we will conclude with part 3 sometime in October. You can also follow our product managers on Twitter at ServiceWisePM and also at TechExcel. Now I'd like to introduce today's TechExcel product manager, Prince Fong. Prince, welcome.
Hey, thanks, Renee. Good morning, everybody, or good afternoon if you're in the East Coast. Again, thank you for joining part 3 of the series here on Unraveling Problem Management. And as always, please be sure to follow us on Twitter and Facebook. We'll be providing a lot of updates via those channels. But let's begin. So today's agenda really, we'll be just discussing problem management, which is just another standard within the ITIL framework dealing with identifying the root cause of incidents and how to prevent them in the future. Specifically, we'll be identifying the current issues today surrounding problem management, the process for root cause analysis, and what are known errors and different approaches to problem solving. So today we're going to be really focusing on problem management, its processes. There's not going to be a live demo of the product at this time, so if you have any questions or if you want to actually see how problem management is done in ServiceWise, just feel free to contact us and then we can walk you through it. Okay, and we anticipate this webinar to be roughly around 30 minutes or so. So it's going to be a short one. All right, so before I describe what problem management is, let me give you a quick refresher on what incident management is. So incident management really deals with trying to solve issues with the quickest turnaround. It's a process that's aimed to restore service as soon as possible, whereas a problem, on the other hand, is figuring out the unknown underlying cause of one or more incidents. So one can ask when the incident becomes a problem, and the answer is never. So the problem ticket is created after the incident has been resolved and when the root cause is not understood. And it seems like the trend today is that, you know, many organizations kind of confuse the two, so hopefully we can clarify that a little bit. Okay, so there are 2 aspects involved with problem management, and they're actually pretty straightforward. So in reactive problem management, incidents have occurred, and the problem management team is trying to find ways to stop reoccurrences of these incidents. Naturally, this is a good starting point for problem management, and by doing this, you'll probably get some quick wins. The best part is that your help desk tool will have all the information, so you can do this without really much effort. Proactive problem management, on the other hand, is a newer sub-process within problem management. It's much more difficult to implement, as it means you need to identify and prevent potential problems before they happen. So you'll need to look at trends, availability and capacity thresholds, and look at targeted preventive actions. So most organizations will use some form of network monitoring tool as well as event management suites to gather information to be able to solve these issues before they become incidents and problems. There's also an element of getting information from users that will help you get ahead of the incident or problem. Okay. In a reactive problem management process, as mentioned, an incident is first resolved and a problem is created. So we want to ensure a smooth handover. Both teams really need to agree on timeframes and the handover process. They need to agree on what data should be passed over and really agree which problems should be created. That means really a prioritization scheme that's accepted by all parties. Acceptance in problem management and clarity on investigations. Also, to ensure a smooth handover, there should be an effective communication since both speak to the same audience. Who says what to whom and when is pretty critical, and really need to understand what the customer actually wants when they ask for the cause. And so the activities in this process are as follows. So we have analysis. During this stage, you'll be gathering information from other ITIL processes, such as incident management, capacity management, and availability management. Then you go on to identify the problem and you record it. So you need to also classify the problems by category, perhaps impact, urgency, priority, and status, and really allocate resources to the problem. In the investigation and diagnosis stage or phase, it covers the root cause analysis, which I'll go over a little bit more later on. And once the root cause has been established, a workaround should be developed and documented, and the problem really then is converted to what we call a known error. So concurrently, a solution can be developed, and a request for change is made via the change management process to deploy the solution. After all said and done, there is a review process, and this is optional, but it's performed to evaluate the success and effectiveness of the solution after implementing the change. Once done, the problem is really just closed and the affected users are notified. All right, so in addition to some of the things done for problem management, this is a quick list on a few things that are done specifically for proactive problem management. The key thing here is communication, and depending on a lot of data so that you can prevent problems. A major activity is trend analysis. It's an activity that identifies fragile components and their reason. And it requires availability of sufficient historical data so that you can analyze and discover patterns and kind of address them before they really become incidents. In order to direct scarce resources, it's worthwhile to investigate which problem areas require the most support time or causing the most impact to the business. So for example, given a pain value to each incident category based on some formula that takes into account the volume of incidents, perhaps the number of users impacted, and the cost of the business. Proactive problem management also means to provide insight and effort and resources spent by your company in diagnosing and resolving problems and known errors to management. Information on workarounds, permanent fixes, and status information should be given to the service desk. And again, key is communication. Lastly, risk and mitigation is another area to consider for prevention of issues within your infrastructure. All right, so many organizations are performing reactive problem management to some degree. However, very few are successfully implementing proactive problem management because of the difficulties involved in getting a cost-effective implementation or the lack of getting financial support. After all, incident management and service desks will always be far more visible than problem management. Nowadays, continuous monitoring tools and event management tools are getting cheaper and better, but technology will not really do everything for you just yet. So having the right people with the right skills and the right process is key. Okay. So let's now get into some specific areas of problem management. The purpose of root cause analysis is to strike at the root of a problem by finding and resolving its root causes. The practice of root cause analysis is predicated on the belief that problems are best solved by attempting to correct or eliminate root causes, as opposed to addressing the immediately obvious symptoms. So root cause analysis is a structured step-by-step process so that it can be consistently applied to different problems at different times by different people. The steps in an RCA include defining the problem, understand what it is, identify solutions, and implement the solution using change management. So when defining a problem, some of the common questions include, what is the problem? When did it occur? Where did it occur? And what is the impact? So by defining the problem and locating exactly what it is, when and where it happened, and the impact that it had on the business, you'll be able to create a starting point for your analysis. So properly defined problems ensure everyone working on the problem is also pointed into the same direction. So when the problem is defined, the next step is to identify the specific causes of the problem, and you need to ensure that you have evidence to verify each cause and establish logical relationships between the causes. An underlying or understanding of all the causes of a defined problem is the platform from which effective solutions are identified. So we want to create a short list of solutions based on eliminate or control the known causes of problems, be cost-effective, achievable, and practical, and really not cause other problems. Implement the short-listed solutions identified in the analysis, and the most critical factors for successfully implementing new solutions include identifying the problem owner, assigning solution implementation to specific people with due dates, and track the implementation and effectiveness. All right, and so we covered a little bit of error control earlier in reactive problem management, but it's the process of monitoring and providing solutions for known errors until they are resolved. So in error control, it contains the following activities: known error identification and recording. So once the root cause has been determined, the problem status changes to a known error. A workaround is developed to feedback to incident management to handle future incidents that occur before a final solution is implemented. The known error definition can be sent to what's known as a known error database to be used in a matching process. Solution investigated. So an assessment is performed on what will be required to resolve the known error. This activity could consist of cross-functional teams to weigh different solutions on various criteria, including costs and benefits. Defining a solution is where a final solution is developed and a RFC, or a request for change, is made via the change management process. So after a change implement process, or after a change has been implemented, a review is in place to evaluate the success. And then finally, we just close out the problem. So a little bit more on known errors. Known errors are created from an incident or problem for which the root cause is known and for which a temporary workaround or permanent alternative has been identified. A known error is in place as long as it's permanently fixed by a change. An appropriate request for change is raised in order to fix a known error. So the details of each known error are stored in the known error database, or KEDB. And as a rule, known errors are identified by problem management, but known errors may also be suggested by other ITIL processes or service management disciplines. In other words, incident management. A known error database is the source of all established root causes. Each known error will have its own record, which will show the detail of the root cause, the workaround, or the fix if it has been implemented, as well as some kind of categorization. The specific information retained in the KEDB will depend on the help desk tool that's in use within your organization. So it can be used really by application owners, where we provide information on how to use an application, or incident management to retain information on past issues and workarounds, as well as support information. Problem management retains known error information and workaround information of the IT service desk to use. And the service desk really educates users to fix their own faults, as well as retaining information on first-line fixes and walk through information to improve the customer experience. So all this is really stored inside that KEDB. Moving on, we have different types of problem-solving techniques, which some of you guys may be familiar with. The first is chronological analysis. So when dealing with a difficult problem, there are often conflicting reports about exactly what has happened and when. So it's therefore very helpful to briefly document all events in chronological order to provide a timeline of the events. So this often makes it possible to see which events may have triggered by others, or to discount any claims that are not supported by the sequence of events. In pain value analysis, I kind of mentioned this a little bit earlier, is a broader view that's taken of the impact of an incident or a problem. So instead of just analyzing the number of incidents or problems of a particular type in a particular period, a more in-depth analysis is done to determine exactly what level of pain has been caused to the organization or the business by these incidents or problems. A formula can be devised to calculate the pain level. So typically it includes the number of people affected, the duration of the downtime caused, and the cost to the business. So by taking all these factors into account, a much more detailed picture of these incidents, problems, can be causing the most pain can be determined. So in theory, you can allow a better focus on those things that really matter and deserve highest priority in resolving. The 5 whys is a good one. It's a technique that is designed to identify the root cause as well. So it's just a simple question asking, it's an asking technique that can be adopted to fit a wide range of scenarios. So example of the 5 whys may include a scenario where the problem is the computer will not boot up. So then you ask why, and the answer to that is the processor is not working. So you continue to ask why, and you realize it's actually overheated and causing solder to become worn. And then you ask another why, and then you realize the cooling fan was actually not effective due to dust buildup. And then you ask why again, and then so the fan, it may be the case that the fan is not cleaned periodically. And then the last why might be a process does not exist to clean the fan on a periodic basis. So in this example, this technique has identified a possible fix to correct the fault by replacing the faulty hardware and cleaning the fan. To avoid a reoccurrence, a process needs to be adopted to ensure that the fan needs to be cleaned at regular intervals. Another approach is brainstorming. So it can be valuable to gather together and to brainstorm the problem, with people throwing in ideas on the potential cause, or what the potential cause may be, and the potential actions to resolve the problem. So brainstorming sessions, as we all know, are very constructive and innovative. The Kepler-Trago process is pretty well known. It's a method that provides a much formal approach than just brainstorming, and is a set of steps for identifying root cause and recommending a solution and implementing the solution. So there are a couple of stages where we define the problem, describe the problem in terms of identity, location, time, and size, establish possible causes, testing the most probable cause, and then verifying the true cause. In a Ishikawa diagram, this technique allows the service provider to really frame a question and develop possible causes using a structured and categorized approach So the techniques, or this technique is one of the most powerful, and it really is hard to do in an incorrect manner. So it might be a good starting point to use. Okay, and the last one is the Pareto analysis. So this prioritization really helps the service provider focus in on the problems with the greatest impact. So it's based on the idea that 80% of incidents result from 20% of the problem causes. So the method allows tackling problems in the order of greatest return. Okay, so some tips on problem management. So don't do problem management because ITIL has it as a required process. In fact, ITIL has 15 to 20, and even with the latest, 30 other processes, which chances are that you probably haven't implemented, but rather focus on the impact of not doing problem management as well as some of its benefits. So you want to start small, stay focused, and really resources should be focused on a prioritized set of initial problems with activities ramped up as successes are achieved. So I mean, what good is identifying problems if few problems ever get resolved? Next, you may want to measure and communicate success. So efficient and effective problem management requires fit-for-purpose performance metrics. So for example, critical success factors could include visibly improved service quality, reduction in costs of problem management, etc. So understand the benefits and limitations of a tool. So having ticks against 1,000 granular problem management capabilities doesn't really mean that the tool will help you do problem management without the right focus and people, of course. And that really concludes our quick webinar today on problem management. Again, if you have any questions or you want to see this in more detail, please contact us. Okay. And Renee, I think we can open it up for questions. I know it's kind of short this time, but if there's any questions, we'll be happy to answer them now.
We do have some questions. The first one is, let's see, I'm just going through these right now. What do you think the hardest part of implementing product management?
Okay. So basically, the hardest, I think you meant problem management again.
Oh gosh, really bad.
It's okay. It's sometimes I get it confused too. But it's really just to get a solid process for problem management, and basically getting a dedicated resource to investigate and find resolutions to problems that might be costly. So I think that is one of the hardest parts of implementing problem management. I just want to mention though, ServiceWise does have a complete ITIL problem management process that's out of the box. So it's just a workflow that it takes you through. We do integrate with other systems to achieve the proactive part. In other words, we integrate with network monitoring tools such as SolarWinds, which I'm not able to show today, but we do integrate with network monitoring tools to really handle proactive problem management.
So I think this concludes our webinar today. If you sent a question and we did not get a chance to answer it, we will follow up with you personally and talk with you about best practices and things like that. And as I mentioned before, there will be the recording and the white paper being sent to all attendees today. You should receive the white paper and recording in a couple of days.
Yeah, and for those that haven't seen how ServiceWise works, we do have some recordings on previous parts of the series where we discuss incident management and change management. Specifically, if you wanted to see how problem management can be done, I would advise to take a look at our change management video. Essentially, you would just replace the change management process with problem management inside ServiceWise.
Okay, well, thank you very much for your time, and thank you to Prince as well.
Sure, you're welcome.
Thank you. Having a good rest of your day.
Thank you, guys.